Hello everyone. I'm really glad that you are watching this presentation. This is a topic that's very close to my heart and something I'm absolutely passionate about. The title of this presentation is In the Changing Future of Work, How Can the Education Sector Prepare Students for Future Careers? Exploring a Definition of Education 4.0. A little bit about myself. My name is Anne Tanaraj. At Teesside University, I am Assistant Academic Registrar, and my role is to lead digital transformation via various key strategic transformation and change projects at the university. I am also a founder of Lawyering in a Digital Age. This is an international initiative which brings together a global interdisciplinary audience to share and shape the direction of legal education so that legal education is preparing students for the changing, technologically advancing legal profession. My PhD also focuses around digital transformation and legal education. So that's a little bit about me, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about why I'm so passionate about Education 4.0. Education 4.0 is simply a label that we could, through this presentation, have that discussion on as to what exactly that means. But essentially, it's a bit of a label that captures advances of how we could use technology, both in the student experience, but also in our curriculum design and curriculum delivery, going above using technology simply as a tool in learning and teaching, but actually using technology as that seamless integration between our physical world and our digital world, where we are bringing in things like augmented reality, virtual reality, immersive mixed experience, and bringing our subject content to life. That's one aspect of it, and there are various other dimensions to Education 4.0, and I'm very much looking forward to having that discussion around what Education 4.0 would mean. The reason I'm passionate about it is I've always advocated for excellence in learning and teaching. And to me, excellence is an evolving concept. What's excellent at one point in time can always be improved and taken in other directions, new, novel ways, creative, innovative ways of teaching our students and preparing them for the change, whether it's change within the professional world, industry, sector, but also change in terms of how we are living and thriving in a digital world. So Education 4.0, if you like, gives students the tools, the knowledge, the skills, the capability, the ability, the confidence to thrive in this sort of seamless, transcending boundaries of physical and digital space. But it's also looking at the sorts of education from primary school right to university, what sorts of education is required to support learners through that confidence and through that fluency in terms of digital citizenship, in terms of digital know-how, but also to thrive in that digital space. So I think education plays a pivotal role in our lives, but also in our roles in educating people right from primary school right through to secondary education. So today's talk focuses on three things, which is exploring the integration between education, industry, and society. Then exploring the sorts of skill sets which cannot be digitized, such as human interaction, criticality, adaptability, imagination, and creative work. And I suppose these are the sorts of skill sets that play a core function within how we design our curriculum and how we create these learning experiences for our students. And therefore, part of this presentation is for us to reflect and question about, how we prepare students for the fourth industrial revolution. And finally, trying to develop or co-create a definition of what Education 4.0 is. And I started this talk saying that it is a label that's put on the future direction of learning and teaching and student experience, but what it means to each one of us as educators, but also what does that mean for universities, schools, colleges, building on each of these institutions and their own learning and teaching strategy, direction, vision, and mission. So a little bit about Industry 4.0. I need to start off by saying Industry 4.0 is another label. It's come about from where professions, industries, and sectors are evolving because they are utilizing a wide variety of technologies to make more efficient their practices. But along the same time, because technology is making efficient, it's also then capable of automating some of the rote processes within industries and sections and sectors. And therefore, what does that mean for us? So fourth industrial revolution is definitely changing the world around us. And as it changes, there's a huge impact on professions. And therefore, if there's a huge impact on professions, then there will be a huge impact in terms of how we're preparing people to get into different professions, because the skill set and the knowledge would be different. So you've got things like your emerging technologies, as well as your technologies that are very much embedded already to daily practices, such as artificial intelligence, robotics, big data, Internet of Things. They all in combination will have large impacts on jobs and industries in different sectors. And, you know, I think the question is around the 21st century intellectual intensive jobs. Would they be impacted? And the answer is yes, absolutely. Your jobs that require that intellectual intensivity, along with jobs that require that repetition and manual work, such as research, are they changing? Are things needing to improve? Yes, absolutely, I would say so. Therefore, again, in our role, it begs the question, what does that mean? And how do we prepare students for education? So here again, I'll start off by saying fourth industrial revolution is changing the world around us. And how it's doing that? Well, the way universities and colleges prepare students to thrive in this sort of seamless integration of physical and digital world is absolutely paramount. And that's a life skill and a lifelong skill that we require, but also we need to instill in our students and create opportunities for them to sort of, you know, work through the confidence on how to navigate that seamless integration. We also need to meet learners' needs, and in order to do that, I think there's a huge advantage of the education sector collaborating with industry, so that we understand how industry is evolving, and therefore we can support and build confidence in our learners to prepare them for the workplace. This is not to say that education is only for work. Absolutely not. Education is for all the intellectual pursuit that it comes with, the criticality, the creativity, learning for the love of learning. But of course, there is a large portion of that is to then be employable, using that knowledge and using that skill set, and using all that learning that's gained from a brilliant education experience. So therefore, collaborating with industry always gives you and gives students that practical aspects to bring subjects to life. It's also about, you know, this is a great opportunity, I think, for us to reimagine knowledge, skills, attributes, and experiences that students need, and how they will develop and refine these skill sets. And that's really important. I think, you know, as educators, we are absolute experts in our content, in our subject discipline. We are also experts in how to deliver that knowledge and skill set and those attributes in the best, most meaningful way to students as possible, so we can see students reap that benefit. We can see students do really well in assessments. We can see students take those skills that we are teaching them and the opportunities that we create for them in real world settings, in making an impact into our communities and so forth. Absolutely. But given that we've got this sort of change around us, the technological change that is changing the professions and industries and sectors, changing how we work, what we do, what we normally have been doing in the past is being automated. Therefore, what does that mean for certain industries and professions? How is that changing? And therefore, what does that mean for knowledge, skills, and attributes? So this is, I think, a great opportunity to reimagine that within our own disciplines and our own areas of expertise. And one thing to bear in mind is, it cannot be said that, you know, what we know is always going to be certain. given that we are working in a flux of change, I think lifelong learning for ourselves and for our students becomes a way of life. And, you know, when you take technology, for example, if you take the sort of basic interpretation of digital literacy, the ability and confidence to use tools in meaningful ways, and also to use tools to communicate in creative, new, novel ways, well, tools are always changing. Their capabilities, features, functionalities, and affordances change. So therefore, what does that mean? We always need to be learning. We always need to be, you know, evolving our knowledge and skill sets, simply because as things advance, our knowledge and skill sets do need to advance as well. And instilling that mindset and that culture into the way we design our curriculum, but also into students, will be an absolute plus point in terms of how they would thrive in that changing space. So then this brings me to this concept of the future ready student. Future is always evolving, future is always changing. And therefore, the question we can ask ourselves is that who is this future ready student, and to what extent we can help students become future ready, given that the future is always changing. Really, in terms of knowledge, skills, and attributes, what we can do really well is prepare students through our curriculum, through our experiences, through the theory and practice of what is within our curriculum. I think we can prepare students to navigate that change in the most effective way, in the most adaptable and resilient way possible. So what I would say is, you know, it's also an opportunity to reimagine and redraw boundaries of how universities are preparing students for this change. And I'll talk through a little bit more about what this reimagination, redrawing of boundaries are. And there are various ways of how to interpret that, and every organization will have their own, and I'm just giving my personal opinion around that. The other thing around future readiness is it's not just about being work ready, but also the ability to contribute to grand challenges and wicked problems of our changing landscape through one's own chosen field of work. So let me give you an example. Law. So the study of law is rigorous, it's academically and intellectually stimulating. There is an abundance of skill set that a law student will gain through their law degree, criticality, being able to analyze information in great depth, that attention to detail, but alongside all that, all the practical elements such as the ability to debate, present, persuasive speaking. These are some of the general but also very transferable skills. But it's a little bit more than that, because now is a good time to reimagine how the study of law, as an example, can evolve. When you think about the role of law, which is around doing good for others, but also it has a regulatory arm within law, and looking at how law needs to be interpreted for supporting others from, you know, in terms of living and working and thriving in that change between physical worlds and digital worlds. So crimes, for example, always are taking place through different levels and different mediums. So it's not just a physical concept. Same things with assets. We own assets in the real physical world, but we also can you know, own assets in the digital space. So it's taking those things into consideration, but also reimagining the challenges that come with the fourth industrial revolution, such as professional rules and professional codes of conduct and how they apply to working online, and things like client confidentiality, for example. How do all those things evolve and impact the study of law, and where do our sort of, if you like, the content and the knowledge that we're teaching our students, what needs to evolve for that to happen? So and that's just one example, and every discipline plays a vital role in reimagining the sorts of modern knowledge and skills that students will benefit from. This is a video that I'd like to play for you. It's around 2 to 3 minutes, and it's around Education 4.0, transforming the future of education through advanced technology. It's a pretty powerful video because it starts with, you know, where and what education was all about, the mindset and the culture of education and how that has evolved. So I shall play this clip and then we'll move on to the next slide.
I remember the teacher talked and we listened. We had to memorise quite a lot too. A lot of time was spent filling out books and collecting them up again. We were sitting in rows of desks so we could see the board better, because talk and chalk was the way.
There must be an industrial revolution in education, in which educational science and the ingenuity of educational technology combine to modernise the grossly inefficient, clumsy procedures of conventional education. Sydney L. Pressey, 1924.
These young people are studying in a new way. A computing calculator designed for use in high school classrooms has created tremendous excitement among educators.
The tool which has made this possible is the high-speed digital computer operating with electronic precision on great quantities of information.
If we think about the third industrial revolution, that was PCs and the internet, and we've just about caught up with that. The fourth industrial revolution is what becomes possible from those technologies.
Industry 4.0 is the next big shift in the way that manufacturing operates. Digital know-how is going to be hugely important, and then people will need to be flexible because the world will change.
A future workplace and future societies, we're still moulding them as we go, and technology is one of the main pillars in what is shaping what the future will look like.
The pace of change is remarkable, with the introduction of these exponential technologies creating a paradigm shift to create Education 4.0.
Lectures aren't fit for purpose anymore. Using textbooks and teaching in a Victorian sort of method with rows of students, listening to the teacher, taking notes, it's obsolete. We need to use our time in lessons to actually have those meaningful mentoring one-to-ones that can never be replaced. The technology gives us that time if we use it correctly.
Rather than being something that's scary, we can use technology to be something that's very liberating for people. So instead of having to go through the rigmarole of institutional learning as it's been in the past, we can actually use smart robotics, smart computers to make learning more accessible to more people and to actually tailor it to individual needs.
This whole cluster of AI technologies will make learning for students more rewarding, teaching for academics more rewarding. We want it to be a win for everybody.
We've shown already in clinical studies and trials that retention is up to 70% higher in virtual reality. That has a huge impact on learning and retention of facts.
The challenge is for universities to really develop their students' digital skills so that they can actually make use of those skills in the workplace. It would be all too easy to say everyone must learn to code, but the truth is coding is just one digital skill.
Creativity, collaboration, communication, critical thinking, these skills that can never be automated, that can never be replaced, are what we need to focus on.
Education 4.0 is a request to the education sector to rethink the educational paradigm. And it's an opportunity for us as this fourth industrial revolution kicks off to think about what modern education should look like.
So you see, this video has been extremely powerful, powerful because of the sorts. Drawing upon the video that we have just heard and watched, and the previous slides that talked about Industry 4.0 and reimagining curriculum, I've prepared 4 questions that are reflective in nature, but also one that's quite collaborative. We could work with our course teams and colleagues to have this conversation and have this discussion. I think these 4 questions are really important across the education sector. And within this presentation, it's I've come up with some ideas around what Education 4.0 would be, and would be very interested to hear from you around your own thoughts and interpretation and how this can be contextualized across different disciplines. So my ideas around Education 4.0 are quite broad in its theme. So first, I think it requires a bit of a reimagination of our academic practice and our teaching, to bring about really high impactful change to the way we design and deliver our curriculum, but also in terms of reimagining all the possibilities of what a student experience would look like. I would say that's really important that we continue to invest in our own professional development, that of our colleagues and our teams, but also in terms of instilling this concept of lifelong learning in our students. Another element of Education 4.0 is around creativity, resilience, and adaptability into subject disciplines, not necessarily only in terms of the experience and skill set that we develop within students, but also helping students understand the role of knowledge in a quite heavy technologically mediated world. What's the role of knowledge, how quickly knowledge changes, but also the value of knowledge in terms of how we utilize it. In one of the previous slides, I talked about the need to reimagine and redraw our boundaries of what knowledge and skills are. And one way of doing that is through interdisciplinary learning. So again, if you go back to the discipline of law, there is a huge benefit of using the law as the parent program, if you're teaching a law degree, for example, or a law module, but getting students to embrace the multi-dimensional aspects of law, such as elements of sociology, elements of science, humanities, ethics, philosophy. These are all elements that broaden the contextualization of one single discipline, and that allows the legal knowledge to be used in different ways, more creative ways. It also helps us understand how knowledge needs to adapt and change and where the gaps are in terms of what's adequate and what's inadequate within our subject disciplines, and what that means in terms of our roles as future professionals, so students who are becoming future professionals, and how they could be positioned with the confidence and resilience to develop that change in policy and the change in, or bring about new interpretations of knowledge. Also preparing students to tackle grand challenges in the world through a broad curriculum. Again, learning is not just for employability, but it's broader than that. And it's how can your own subject discipline work with other disciplines and work across multidisciplinary teams to address some of the challenges that our world faces, and what, you know, and what sorts of solutions we could come up to in addressing those challenges. Personalized learning is absolutely vital. There is no one-size-fits-all model to learning. And whilst curriculum is developed and validated to run in a particular way, I think through digital tools and solutions, the way students learn, the pace in which they're learning within a module that is supposed to run for 6 weeks or 12 weeks, I think that there are ways of being creative and building in that adaptability for learners, and digital tools allow you to do that. And there's one thing I would absolutely recommend: adaptive assessments and feedback is one of the best ways in which students can be encouraged to develop their own pathway in learning, as well as opportunities for them to test and build their knowledge and confidence as they go through a particular curriculum. And also how we use, you know, assessments, what's its purpose, and how we design assessments. Assessments with real world impact have a huge educational benefit, both in terms of Education 4.0 and its reach across the use of technology, but also in terms of how students immerse themselves in the subject knowledge. So Education 4.0 does have a very strong influence in terms of technology, and how technology influences how students study and how they learn and what we do to enable that. But I think it's broader than just technology. It's revisiting, reimagining, and redrawing the boundaries of disciplines, bringing together different disciplines so that students learn in a more broader contextualized way. And finally, all I've got left to say is thank you. Thank you very much for spending some time and listening to this presentation. I am very passionate about the subject and very, very interested to hear from anybody who has ideas around Education 4.0 and the use of digital technologies in learning and teaching. Yeah, if you're interested in sort of spending more time talking about this, collaborating in terms of writing opinion pieces around some of these areas that really interest me, I'd love to hear from you. Otherwise, thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to hearing from you.